All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to plug into what is honestly the most incredible electrical system on the planet, and it's right inside your chest. We're talking about your heart. We're going to decode the signals it sends out with every single beat, and then we'll look at what happens when that perfect, beautiful rhythm, well, when it breaks. Let's get into it. Think about this for a second. Your heart sends out an electrical signal over 1 billion times in your life. 1 billion! It's this incredible feat of biological engineering, right? But here's the thing. That perfection is, well, it's fragile. Because when that signal goes wrong, when it gets all chaotic, the results can be absolutely catastrophic. So to really get a handle on the chaos, we first have to appreciate the masterpiece. You know, a normal heartbeat, it's not just a simple thump-thump. No way. It's more like a perfectly conducted symphony, where every single part plays its role at the exact right moment. Okay, so this is basically the sheet music for that symphony. It all kicks off with the SA node. That's the heart's own natural pacemaker. It fires off a signal that spreads across the top chambers. Then, that signal hits the AV node, which is like this critical gatekeeper. It actually pauses everything for just a tiny fraction of a second. And that little delay, it's everything. It gives the top chambers just enough time to empty out before the big, powerful bottom chambers pump. And then finally, whoosh! The signal zips down the center and through these things called Purkinje fibers, triggering that massive squeeze that sends blood out to your entire body. Pretty cool, right? And this is what that whole journey looks like on an ECG. It's the visual signature of a single, healthy heartbeat. See that first little bump? That's the P wave. That's the top chambers, the atria, contracting. Now, this big spike in the middle, the QRS complex, that's the main event. That's the powerful squeeze from the ventricles. And that last little bump, the T wave, that's just the ventricles electrically resetting themselves, getting ready to do it all over again. It's a really beautiful, predictable pattern when everything's working right. So you might be asking, why does this perfect, coordinated pattern matter so much? Well, it all boils down to one crucial word: perfusion. That's the whole point of the heartbeat, really. It's all about delivering that oxygen-rich blood to every single cell in your body. When the symphony is in sync, perfusion is great. But when that rhythm breaks, your tissues, they start to starve. All right, so how do doctors and nurses actually read this music? Well, they use a tool called an electrocardiogram, or ECG for short. You can just think of it as a really sensitive voltmeter that prints out the heart's electrical story, one beat at a time. And that story gets printed out on this special grid paper. See, on this paper, time is measured in these tiny little squares. Each one represents just 4/100ths of a second. I mean, incredibly fast. And that precision is absolutely key, because by measuring the width of those waves we were just looking at, we can spot even the tiniest delays or rushes in that electrical signal. And that tells us exactly what's going wrong. But what happens when that beautiful, predictable pattern gets broken? Well, that's when you get something called a dysrhythmia. It's literally dissonance in the heart's symphony. Yeah, this really breaks it down nicely. On one side, you've got a normal rhythm, right? Coordinated signals, effective pumping, healthy blood flow, everything's great. But on the other side, dysrhythmia. The signals have gone haywire, the pump is starting to fail, and that all-important perfusion, it's in trouble. Now, these rhythm problems, they come in a few main flavors. You've got the heart just beating way too fast, that's called tachycardia. Or it could be beating way too slow, that's bradycardia. Then there's something called atrial fibrillation, or AFib, where the top chambers just kind of quiver chaotically instead of doing a good, solid pump. And that's really dangerous because it can cause blood clots. But the most serious rhythms of all, they start in the ventricles, the heart's main power pumps. Okay, so now we're moving from just problems to full-blown crises. Because some of these rhythms, they're not just a little off-key. They are a sign of imminent collapse. And this is the most dangerous of them all. It's called ventricular fibrillation, or VFib for short. In VFib, the ventricles aren't beating at all. They've just descended into total, absolute electrical chaos. The heart muscle literally just quivers like a bag of worms. So what's the result? Zero blood flow, zero pulse. This is cardiac arrest. And just look at this. This is what that chaos looks like on an ECG. I mean, forget those neat, organized waves we saw before. VFib is just a frantic, messy scribble. There's no pattern at all because there's no coordinated pumping happening. Make no mistake, this waveform is a death warrant unless one thing happens, and happens immediately: an electrical shock. So that shock is called defibrillation.
And you can think of it as a massive electrical reset button for the heart. A really powerful, unsynchronized shock gets sent through the heart to just stop all that chaotic activity. The goal is to give the heart's natural pacemaker, that SA node, a chance to take control again and hopefully restore normal rhythm. Now, while defibrillation is really for the most extreme life or death emergencies, there are actually a lot of ways to restore the heart's harmony for other dysrhythmias that are, less immediately fatal.
Medications are, of course, a huge cornerstone of treatment. And you can see here how different classes of drugs work. You've got things like beta blockers, which act like a brake on the heart, slowing the rate down. And then other drugs might target the specific ion channels that are causing the electrical misfire in the first place. It's really all about finding the right tool to gently nudge that symphony back into harmony. And it's not just drugs. There's a whole toolbox of other things we can do. There's cardioversion, which is like a carefully timed, controlled shock to reset those less chaotic rhythms. There are even ablation procedures, where doctors can go in, find the exact spot in the heart that's causing the problem, and neutralize it. And if the heart's own pacemaker, the SA node, is failing, well, an artificial pacemaker can just take over as the new conductor. And sometimes the fix can be as simple as correcting an electrolyte imbalance in the blood. And in the end, it all comes back to this: 0.04 seconds. That's the amount of time in one single tiny square on an ECG paper. It's such an impossibly small slice of time, right? And yet, within that tiny measurement, doctors can read the entire story of the heart's electrical symphony. They can see exactly what's going on and know precisely how to step in when even a single beat goes astray. It's just a tiny number that holds the rhythm of life itself.